everyone. Welcome to Community Affairs with the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce. Today, our guest is Valerie with Business Oregon. She's our local feet on the ground representation, and I know she represents more than Wasco County, but she is here and then making sure that we understand all that Business Oregon does and anything that pertains to us as a community and our businesses. And I know she is the type of person who will be open to questions. And so I will do my best to catch you on the screen or on the chat and make sure that Valerie has that so that they can be addressed and answered. So with that, we're going to introduce everybody around the screen first, and then Valerie will take it away. So Ms. Corliss, could you start for us?
Good morning, everyone. This is Corliss Marsh, and I represent Habitat for Humanity, the Senior Center, and the library, and the College Foundation Board.
I was
So,
going to say, don't forget the last.
no updates.
All right, thank you. You sure there's no updates? That's a lot of organization
No,
there.
there's none right now.
Okay, next week we'll catch you.
Yeah.
All right, Dan Spots.
Thank you, Lisa. Dan Spots, Economic Development Officer, City of the Dalles. The EPA Brownfield program is up and running now. We have a contractor on board. Urban Renewal is back up now that we have substantial amendment for additional spending authority as of this past December. So I just visited the project site yesterday. Good news and bad news on the Childcare Center. Good news is we have a $19.9 million EPA Community Change Grant under contract as of December. Bad news, that grant and apparently many others around the state are being suspended by the EPA, part of the ongoing shenanigans. And there is a kind of a grassroots effort starting to see what's going on and what we can do about it. It's not going to be easy, but it is starting. So stay tuned.
Sounds great. Thank you. Phil?
Hi, Phil Brady, Wasco County Commissioner. Last week I attended a Forest Service meeting on fire prevention in South Wasco County. They're working to treat the forest lands, let's say west of Ty Valley, Maupin. Same issue, the abdication of responsibility at the federal level has got 11 workers out of the Mount Hood National Forest who were focused on fire prevention. Tonight in Mosher, there's 4 to 7, there's a meeting on the joint use facility. The Mosher community is they're probably connected with Business Oregon, probably, I suspect.
All right. Thank you. Brian?
Brian Tech, retired.
Wow, you were short on words today there, Brian. All right. Scott?
Good morning, everyone. Scott McKay. I'm a community liaison for Circles of Care. It is a nonprofit that connects older adults who need some kind of periodic support like transportation or friendly visits with volunteers, with older adults. Most of our volunteers are older adults. So it's kind of like older adults helping other older adults. So, and then the only comment I have is that, Dan, when you retire, you're going to be busier than ever. And a lot of times you kind of wonder, where did you have the time? So, and try to avoid Brian's mistake of becoming the babysitter, the grandparent taking care of the kids.
I think it's a cool job. We need grandpas like that. So, Heidi.
Hey, I'm Heidi Venture. I used to be a nonprofit consultant, and I've worked on strategic plans with several of you, which makes me happy to see you're still out there getting stuff done. And I'm thinking about joining the chamber, so I thought I'd show up at a couple meetings and see what's going on. Now I'm working with Vital Reset, which is a psilocybin service center in Hood River, giving people mushrooms for their mental health issues. And Dan, we get a lot of guys who are retiring and want to figure out what to do with the rest of their life. It's a pretty interesting job I have found for myself, getting people high every day and they leave happier than they came in. Seeing a lot of veterans. We're just, I don't know, it's just great to be able to help people feel better. And now we're seeing people coming in for political anxiety. So yeah, that's what's happening with me. Scott, you look like you got a question.
Yeah, just Heidi, you can talk to any of us and we'll give you many reasons why you should join the Dalles Chamber.
Well, I've been a member before, so it's really just do I have time to devote to being involved? I don't want to join and not be involved.
Yeah. And it's good to see you, Heidi.
Yeah, it's great to see you too, Scott. So many of you I met through the Ford Family Foundation Leadership Program.
Okay.
Thank you. So really quick, before we go into Valerie, I usually wait for mine at the end, and so I'm going to just jet in a couple things for the chamber. One, tonight is business after hours. It is at the Balch Hotel in Duffer. Great way to unwind and end your day with beautiful views and a gorgeous venue. So that's from 5 to 7 out at the Balch tonight. And then, of course, there's a ton of things going on. Be watching. As you can imagine, it's close to Cherry Festival. It's a little over a month away, but barely. And so all things Cherry Festival are going to be rolling out, having fun, and different opportunities for you to participate and be engaged in that event. So if there's any questions, just call us at our office. We'll be glad to stick you in a spot where you can volunteer. Love to do that. So it takes a village to put on that event. And so we're looking forward to it. And just in case you haven't heard, this year's theme is Cherryland, like the traditional game of Candyland. Remember that board game with all the colored spaces? That is what this year's theme is. We thought we would have lots of fun and have that really just bright and engaging and family inviting there. So and with that, Valerie, we appreciate you coming on here and just taking time to talk about Business Oregon and how and what that means to our businesses right here in Wasco County. So I'm going to let you take it over from there. And like I said, guys, if you have any questions, just holler, raise your hands, jump up and down your seat. I'll make sure I get to you, or you can even just put it in the chat as I do have that open and ready to read.
All right, thank you so much, Lisa. Yeah, and it was great to hear everyone's introductions as well. I think I've met most, if not all of you, at the very least at the last time I presented here, which when I was preparing, I realized is almost a year to the day, because last year I presented on the 21st. So maybe this is just my regularly scheduled time, my slot. Anyway, I just prepared a few slides. I'm just going to speak about some of our programs that are currently kind of open and available both to businesses and to kind of cities or other local jurisdictions. And feel free to, pop in with questions at any time. Pretty informal about this, especially if it's something related to what I'm talking about. So we don't really lose track of that question. So yeah, feel free to post questions anytime. And with that, then I will share my slides, and then I think it shouldn't take too long, so we can have some time for more open conversation if you have questions about other things that I didn't talk about or wanted me to elaborate on anything. All right, can you see, am I sharing with you all? Can you see it?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'm Valerie Egon. I'm a regional development officer with Business Oregon. So I serve Hood River, Wasco, and Sherman counties. So, a lot of the things that, I'll be talking about today are programs that are available kind of statewide, and then I work with within those programs locally. And so kind of zooming out a bit to Business Oregon, we are the state's economic development agency. Our mission is to invest in Oregon's businesses, communities, and people to promote a globally competitive, diverse, and inclusive economy. And that's done in a lot of different ways. It's a big, broad mission. And so within that, functions include rural community development and infrastructure financing. So we work with a lot of rural communities and smaller districts that to access financing, a lot of the urban areas have the capacity and have access to funding through other means. So they often are a bit separate from our functions, but we're really focused on the rural communities. Also with business retention, expansion, and recruitment. We also work with businesses on export promotion and international trade as they explore options to just grow their markets. We look at industry research and development pertaining to particular sectors where Oregon may just have a strength or other kind of initiatives behind. So, you know, everything from agriculture and food production to semiconductors, to at least drone manufacturing in this region, but we're doing that also statewide. Then there's also support and programming for entrepreneurship and small business assistance. A lot of that is funded through Business Oregon and then carried out by MCED and other kind of regional partners. And then we also have a small arm that provides support and programming for arts and cultural organizations. That's a bit more removed from what I do on a day-to-day, but occasionally we cross paths. And so then within the regional development team, we are the development officers who are located kind of throughout the state. We're a team of 12, and we just work with the kind of local partners and businesses and folks like you, just to be able to access state resources and to kind of just spread the word about what's out there. And so that's more about what I'm going to talk about today. I think these are programs that are the most relevant to this audience and area, that being the Dalles and Wasco County, but also regionally. So on the infrastructure side, we have housing and childcare infrastructure. These programs are actively accepting applications right now, so I just have a few slides on those to share with you. Other programs that we also work with are water, wastewater. So several programs with smaller communities in Wasco County there. The Dalles doesn't usually qualify for those programs because of the population. I think the cutoff is 15,000 and you're at like 15,500. So just over that. But we also work on public works projects, brownfields, community development, block grants, and broadband. And I know broadband is kind of being revitalized in the county right now, with a recent application for pre-qualification for from Q Life, and I think maybe a few other folks. So that may be just kind of picking up in the region. I think they're going to be really looking at areas that aren't served right now by fiber. So that's going to be, I think, more rural communities in South Wasco County. And then on the business programming side, we have the Small Business Sustainability Fund, which is a grant fund for small businesses, and then an entrepreneurial development loan fund, which is loans for businesses that are also pursuing larger investments in their business. And then Rural Innovation Hubs is another one that we're heavily involved in. I know Jacob was here last week speaking about the Mid-Columbia Hub, so I won't go into much detail on that, other than to say that there's just, you know, MCED is heavily engaged in that, and they've actually been doing really good work on that. They're, I think, one of the leading districts in the state right now on that, in that area. Once they got their funding, they really hit the ground running, and they've been doing a lot. So I just wanted to kind of commend them for that. So, all right. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about for the next few slides. And then, but like I said, feel free to interject with questions or follow up at the end. So childcare infrastructure program, that is a $50 million program for, that is a $50 million program that intends to invest in improvements to childcare facilities. So it is a program that is open to a variety of different applicants, small businesses that are just childcare centers and daycare centers, as well as schools and municipalities. So a pretty broad swath of different types of applicants can apply for that and have applied. And I'll get a little bit more into that with the project kind of out, or the last round of funding. But eligible costs include anything that's like a fixed assets or new construction, renovations, repairs to facilities, even property acquisition, or larger projects. I know that in the Dalles, there was an application in the last round for the childcare center that Dan mentioned. So they weren't awarded that, but I'll get a bit into that with let's see the next slide under the first round. That was in August to September. Awards were announced in December, and there was 10 million in grant funding available. And it was a highly competitive round. Application requests totaled almost 290 million with only 10 million available. So really competitive. And I know that the kind of review team had to, with just such a high volume of applications, they kind of had to really pare down what the prioritization criteria were to identify the awards. There were 64 total. And in this region, in the North Central region, there were 3 projects awarded, 1 in each county. So I think there was one for renovations, a small grant for renovations and repairs in the county, in Hood River County, and then one for like a heat pump for a center or facility in Sherman County in Wasco. And then in the Dalles, there was one that went to Adventist Health, Columbia Gorge. And so I was a bit, disappointed with with that outcome for the region, only because I would have loved to have seen more awards. But with it being so competitive, I know they at least tried to spread it enough so that it would be at least spread throughout the region. But there will be a next round coming up. And just to kind of remind any folks that there are these project prioritization criteria that are also looked at when ranking applications. So expanding infant and toddler slots, sites that are located in severe childcare deserts and that offer culturally specific care and extended hours. So if you're growing slots and increasing slots, I know that's kind of viewed as a important aspect, but then all of these other criteria are considered too.
I'm going to
see your
interrupt
hand
for
is
just,
up.
yeah, Dan's got a question.
Oh, thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Valerie. And I think, one of the key things here is it shows the need across the state of Oregon. Look at the number of applications, and appreciation to Business Oregon for taking this on. That has not been easy. I think the childcare center that we're talking about, it's been a heavy lift, and from a grant perspective, awarder perspective, I think last year that, these folks don't have a chance. Look at the size of this project. Now with community change putting 20 million into it, if we can preserve the grant, I think it's going to change that dynamic. So I know that an application is pending for these funds again, but we'll,
Yeah, that's great. And I know, I had shared that info with the team, Dan, when you had let me know in the fall, just so they had a heads up. And I know, and from what I heard, that just having other funding secured and enough funding to actually then start moving the project forward is a huge benefit for this. Just being able to know that that project is actually going to start to break ground, or, the renovations will get started. So fingers crossed that that really pans out for y'all there.
It's under federal contract, so as long as right now they're trying to break these contracts all across the state. Little city of Chilliquin, Dalles, they were one of the first recipients. They've been suspended. The Grand Ronde tribe, Oregon DEQ, frankly, I saw them on the list, and I don't know if they're losing funds, but it's statewide and probably a national thing that's going on right now.
While we're pausing, Phil Brady has a question: is where does Business Oregon get its funding from?
These funds are state funds. They are lottery bonds. And so, and like I had mentioned earlier, the total amount of funding is 50 million. I know when this was just initially in the proposed in legislation, it was at 300 million because of what the needs were. But kind of at the end, it was pared down to 50 million, but those are state lottery funds.
Are they earmarked in the same way that like the childcare one is? Is it, how much of it is pure discretionary, and how much of it is for this program, for that program?
The 50 million is entirely for the childcare infrastructure program. So it's it has to be, though, because of the types of funds that they are, it has to go towards kind of capital improvements and expenses, so like fixed.
I get
But does that answer your question, or?
Well, I noticed that the childcare came from a House bill. Are the other funds also designated by House bills for different?
Oh, for other programs?
Yeah.
It can really depend on the type of program. So a program like childcare infrastructure, which is, as of right now, a kind of one-off, one-time program, is approved. It goes through that process as a House bill. And we have other programs that are similar, like actually the program I'll be talking about next, which is housing infrastructure, but then funding for like the semiconductor industry is kind of from a similar pool. As is, I mean, things that are like pretty sector specific that don't have ongoing funding from the states. Then there's other programs that have historically received a kind of set amount or percentage of the funds. You still have to go through the budget process, but those are more consistently part of the Business Oregon budget. Those are also typically state lottery dollars. And then we also do have some programs that are federally funded as well. So it comes from a lot of different places, and it really depends on which program you're talking about.
Thank you.
So for the next application round, that'll be open March 26th through April 30th. And you know, we don't know everyone who will apply, but you know, if you know of any other smaller childcare providers in the area, you know, please just share this opportunity with them if they haven't heard about it, because it is open to anyone who has a childcare business. Even like home-based childcare providers can apply. So, and that's another reason why I think, you know, it has received so much, there has been such demand for it, is that it does really cross a broad variety of different providers in the childcare spectrum. But there will be 15 million in grant funding available this round. That's 5 million more than the last round of 10 million. Updated guidelines will be posted soon if they haven't been already. And then below we have the different eligible project types. So minor renovations or repairs. I think that was definitely a lot of the awards in the last round were in that category, especially for some of the smaller providers. Then new construction or major renovation can range from 100,000 to 2 million, and so anything over $100,000 would be considered a major renovation for this program. And then it can also support property acquisition up to 2 million. And that will not be the final round. There will be a third round at the 25 million, which is the remaining amount of the funds that will come out later this year. And I think part of why they did split this into 3 rounds was that with the first round, it was a bit more experimental. They didn't really know what the application pool would look like. And so by making that a smaller round, they were kind of able to understand really what, you know, what applicants were, you know, looking for, what types of projects they were doing, what the demand for different types of projects is. And so with that, then they've been able to make some updates and changes to better reflect what the applicants are doing, and with a better understanding of what these applications are looking like and what the projects are kind of panning out. And so then with this final round, that will be the largest amount of funding available, and that will be later this year. So yeah, you'll be seeing more on this one. And they've also posted on their website information on the last round, like all of the applicants and who was awarded. So they've been, there's a lot of information, and they've been pretty like open and transparent about that. So that if somebody is applying in a future round, they can really kind of understand how they can complete their application. There's also additional support for completing applications if folks need that. All right, so were there any other questions about childcare infrastructure before I move into housing? All right, hearing none, I will move on to this. So this the Housing Infrastructure Support Fund is funding that was approved through Senate Bill 1537, which did a few things, not just fund this program, but a few other housing related programs were also a part of that bill. So part of this was though it made 2.8 million available for housing infrastructure planning to cities, with helping them plan and finance the infrastructure for housing developments. So that would be water, sewer, sanitation, stormwater, and transportation. So that could look like connecting a new development, a housing development, to the city's water system or wastewater system, sewer system, or planning for the transportation improvements that might need to be made near that development, whether it's sidewalks, maybe looking at like traffic pattern changes. So it can look at those types of expenses. So it's not a lots of funding. It's, that's why it's really intended for planning. It won't fund any construction activities. I mean, 2.8 million is kind of a drop in the bucket for that. But the intent is really for the funds to support cities in planning the infrastructure improvements that are needed for housing development. And so the funds can go towards engineering or design assistance and consultant time spent on, developing or administering grants that will support construction. And it does also have some density requirements. But I just wanted to bring up this program I know housing is kind of a big issue in the region. It impacts, in terms of business, it impacts the workforce and who you're able to hire. And so housing development, I know, is a priority in the region. These funds, I think, would really be going towards projects that have interest from a developer already and the city's engaged with them. Just being the kind of nature of the funds that they are, you would need to kind of have a project that you're already kind of involved in and working on before you would really apply for these funds. This program is open. Applications are due at the end of March. And as of right now, to make things really easy, that's sarcasm, the activities must take place on or before June 30th. And that's really soon. So that is kind of makes things a bit prohibitive, but we are requesting carryover authority from the legislature, which basically means it's an extension, so that the funds there would be more time for cities to actually spend those funds. So we're optimistic about that. Usually that's a pretty standard request, but if it's not approved, we wouldn't be able to reimburse expenses after June 30th. And we do anticipate that this will be a competitive application. Yeah, but if you have any questions about the program or wanted to pass any information along, I'm not the expert, but I can connect you with the folks that are, and the same with childcare. All right, any other questions about housing or childcare before I move on to some of the business programs? All right.
So I think you're good.
All right, great. So our business development programs provide financing and other types of technical assistance that support business retention, expansion, and recruitment. And so we do that through a variety of different programs, and the ones that tend to be most used by smaller businesses are our Small Business Sustainability Fund, which is a grant program providing grants up to $75,000 for business investments and expansion and growth for their business. And then the Entrepreneurial Development Loan Fund, which is a loan program that's really intended to help startups and small businesses access additional capital. So first, with the Small Business Sustainability Fund, it's really intended to kind of help stabilize and grow smaller businesses through that are already planning kind of an investment or an expansion with their business. They're in the process of looking for maybe a loan or some financing. And so for a project like that, where they're kind of interested in growing and have been working like on a business plan, that's a good time to reach out to us and see and check in about grants eligibility, because it can really help leverage the funds that they're bringing to the table for their growth or expansion. So it can be a really helpful tool for a small business, and those I know that have used it have really found it to be instrumental to their kind of growth or scaling up to their next kind of level of business. And so priorities do include rural businesses and underrepresented businesses. Projects should demonstrate a public benefit and increase out-of-state sales, or show that the business is key to the residents of the community in which it serves. So typically, that's to translate that. So funds are typically are intended for either traded sector businesses, so they're producing a product that they're scaling up and starting to maybe sell out of state, or just expanding to additional states. That's kind of one possibility. And the other then is a business that is key to the residents of the rural community. So that would be an example of a project like that would be the market in Maupin, the Maupin market. When they changed ownership, they received a small grant. It was well under $75,000, but a small grant to just help with their working capital expenses during that transition. So it enables the store to stay open and stay operating during that period of business transition. And because it's a highly rural community, it's the only market in Maupin and in the surrounding area. It's considered a key business to that area. And so a market like in the Dalles, for example, wouldn't be eligible in that sense, since would be one of many. So those are kind of considered on a more case-by-case basis, but it is then a broader kind of type of business that can be eligible. So I know like healthcare and some hospitality businesses have received those funds in the past, but typically if you're located in a more urban area, then it's going to really be specific for traded sector businesses. Eligible use of funds includes tenant and capital improvements, purchase of equipment and machinery, inventory and accounts receivable funding, and working capital. So that can be employee training or other expenses that you need to invest in your employees as you're scaling up. And these funds this funding is available typically every biennium. We receive it's kind of a portion of funding for this program. So applications are accepted on an ongoing basis. And so these funds are also state funds, and they are lottery dollars, but they're more discretionary. So they can be used towards different types of kind of business expansion projects. And so within that funding, the Small Business Sustainability Fund is kind of a bucket within that.
First, Phil has a question, and then I have a question to follow up after that.
Okay.
Two questions. You've already stated this, but it's the first line is that this is for leveraging grants. Does that mean it needs to be matched?
It doesn't need to be matched, I guess, in a traditional sense, but there will want to see additional investment.
Oh,
But
okay.
it doesn't, that can come from different sources. So part of it can come from the business and part of it can come from a loan. But yeah, it is a 40%. That's probably what you were looking for. So it can be the grant can be up to 40% of the total project cost or the total investment with a maximum of 75,000. So let's say a business is investing $100,000 and it's in maybe an expansion project or some new equipment. The grant would cover $40,000 of that.
And second follow-up, you mentioned medical clinics.
Mhm.
Thinking of a clinic in Maupin that's owned by the public health district. Would a public health that operates a clinic be eligible?
I would have to look into that. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But if you know that they are looking for funding, I can absolutely look into that. And
I'll direct them your way and they'll follow up.
okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to try to get a feel of where a person could do this because obviously we're talking to small businesses every day.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use an example. I have somebody who is managing a lavender farm with the hopes to purchase that, but right now they're in full charge managing. One of their many things that they've got on the prioritization and strategies is to create a farm stand within the lavender piece so that they can be selling, and then to start doing events. So they have a big big task ahead of them, but the first thing that they're trying to do is the farm stand. And they've reached out to a couple aspects to see if they could get a loan. It's not a super big loan, but it would, as soon as it's done, it would be starting to turn and be able to bring in revenues, and then they can start going on to the next steps after that. Is something like that able to apply in this area?
Yeah, that's kind of one of those gray areas where they're
Yes.
making something, but is it considered traded sector? I would say if they're using the lavender and processing it in a way that is creating creating like a product that they can kind of scale up and that has potential to be scaled to a level where it could be sold out of state or even
Yes.
overseas, it would kind of be looking like if that was the trajectory of
Okay.
it, it would kind of have to be in that space.
That realm.
If they're making, a small amount of like essential oils or other products like that you would make with lavender, but it's kind of just really locally sold. I don't think it would qualify, but I'm always happy to check because there are gray areas here, and so it's better to just ask and see what the slant might be versus not asking at all.
Right. I'll
and
put her in touch with you.
yeah, I'd be happy to talk with them about it. And there's also, we have loan programs, which I'll expand upon next,
Okay.
which are also available to businesses, and sometimes they can be used by businesses that may have difficulty finding other.
Yes, because they're a newer business, so
Yeah.
we all know how
So-
that works.
So let's see, did I have anything else on that? No, so I guess that's a good then transition to the Entrepreneurial Development Loan Fund, which provides direct loans for startups, micro enterprises, and small businesses to expand or become established. So that's a program that a lavender farm could definitely look into.
Okay.
Because any type of business is eligible to apply. The interest rates are going to be somewhat similar to a private lender or a traditional lender, but the benefit of this loan fund is that it can
Get you going.
it just can get you going, whereas if like the lavender farm, for example, is having difficulty securing a loan, but they can kind of demonstrate their proof of concept and what their plan is, they could definitely look into this program.
Okay.
I know I kind of compare it a bit to McKed's loan program as well, in that it can kind of support smaller like businesses that might not be able to receive traditional lending. So
Fantastic.
yeah, and sometimes businesses will have a loan through here, and they might have a MCED loan as well, and they might have a loan from a bank. Because of what, you know, their needs are, they weren't able to secure a single loan in that amount, but it
Okay.
can be a part of it.
Thank you.
So yeah, and then I just have an example of a company that used both the Small Business Sustainability Fund and Entrepreneurial Development Loan Fund, which is Well Gelato, which you're probably all familiar with. So yeah, but you might not know that they did receive a grant through the Small Business Sustainability Fund coupled with a loan. And so with that grant and loan, they were able to make investments in new equipment and inventory for their new facility in the Dalles that they moved into, I think in 2022. So I know they were able to get additional equipment just to help with their processes. I know when you work, food production is challenging, and then when you add the fact that it's frozen, it, you know, creates even more challenges with how you're making your product and then storing it and shipping it. And so they were able to get some equipment that just helped speed up their processes. Like they bought a new big walk-in freezer that then the truck can just pull right up to for loading, so that their product doesn't get cold or stays cold and doesn't melt. And so all these things have just enabled them to scale their production and expand their network. They grew from, I think, 2 to 6 employees, if not more even now. And their products are available in well over 800 stores, and they've been working on plans to export their product to Canada. So they're a good example of a business that was in a place that they were ready to grow. They had their, you know, plans, ideas, you know, and things were kind of already underway in terms of their move to the Dalles. And so this grant and loan just helps them kind of get over that hurdle and as they were scaling up production. So I would say that's a good example of a local business that has recently used both programs and done, I think, a really great job of it. And, you know, Debbie has more plans for growth. So it's just exciting to see where they go. And that was it. So I will stop sharing. Oh, and here's my contact information as well if you need it, but you probably can access that other ways too, but there you are. And I will stop sharing, and we can just chat more about any questions you have either about these slides or anything else, Business Oregon, statewide, you might have other questions, I don't know.
I didn't catch your contact information. Can you put it in the chat?
Sure thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, or I can just copy and put it in there for you, Valerie, if you want.
Okay, well, if
So-
you don't mind doing it then.
Nope, I will do that for you. I've got your signatures and it has it all in there.
Just a
Okay.
comment in general and compliments for Valerie for everything she does in the region. I had a question about a local restaurant yesterday and emailed her, and she got back to me in about 5 seconds with very helpful information, but talk about responsive. Just super person to work with. Thank you, Valerie.
Thanks, Dan. And you too. Right back at ya.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've received that similar questions to that one about kind of insurance rates going up from other
Yeah.
businesses too. And yeah, that's one of those where there's not really like any resources out there right now, but you really see that there's a need. And this is about kind of, I think, these are improvements that like businesses need to be more resilient to fires. So I think, you know, things like installing sprinkler systems or retrofitting to be more fire resistant as a facility. But what's happening is that businesses that don't have those are finding that their insurance rates are just going through the roof. So what research are there resources out there to help these buildings or these businesses that are often in older buildings retrofit them to make them more fire resistant so that they can bring down their insurance rates? So it's been a challenge.
This company, they're a local restaurant. I think their premium went up something like $20,000 last year, and they've not had any incidents. Urban Renewal, just as an update for your information, we did make some headway on this Monday night. We are now allowing Urban Renewal to help with the cost of sprinkler systems, even in current uses. We had a restriction on like if a restaurant has a public area, we weren't allowed to put sprinklers in that before, but now we are. But it's only in the urban renewal district, and the business in question that we communicated about is outside the district boundary, unfortunately. But downtown the Dalles will be able to help businesses there.
Great, it's a step, you know, in the direction. And I think, you know, because I think this is, I can imagine that this is a state kind of wide issue that businesses are experiencing. So, you know, I think, you know, it's important to make it known as an issue because that's how down the line potentially, you know, that can affect programming or eligibility for certain types of funds. But it, you know, takes a while to build that momentum, but
yeah.
Any other questions from folks or updates to share?
Valerie, I'm on some of the email lists, and then I just went to your website and looked up the small business infrastructure one. And I see there's a ton of different opportunities, all the different things. Is there such a blast or just a list that will let me know for more on the small business side, but for loans and grants and that? I get some, but you know, like this one that's opening up with the childcare. We have so many childcare providers in our town who are trying to figure out how to expand due to the need. And I know that you guys probably work with childcare partners with Nancy, but sometimes, you know, we have a few of those that are members of our chamber, and it would be great to be able to send this out. I'm obviously going to be watching and sending out them the information now that I found it, but is there a particular list or do I need to get on multiple lists?
I think it's one of those multiple lists.
Okay.
I can like poke around though and let you know which ones. I'll make
Yeah,
a
I would
note
like
to
to
do
get this
that. Yeah.
information out as soon as we could. We now have actually a Monday e-blast that is just to our chamber members first, and then the Wednesday one is to the community. And in that Monday, we're trying to find any grant opportunities and getting it to our chamber members first, so they have that opportunity to look it over before we announce it to the public that this is available. They're the ones who've invested into us, and so we want to try to give them just a little bit of a heads up. But yeah, if I can get on those lists, that way we can be watching and making sure that that's out there for them to at least apply and look at and take advantage of.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I'll get you that info then. Yeah, it's usually on like I know we have just like a single newsletter, I think that comes out maybe once a month, and that'll have programmatic updates, but there's so many programs that not everything makes it. So yeah, so I can send you kind of more specific.
Okay, perfect. That would be great. I think I get your newsletter for sure, but I'm like, wait a minute, I missed this. How did I miss it?
Yeah, and sometimes, yeah, things, you know, you think they cast a wide net, but they don't. So
Yeah, it's tough.
It's wider than you think.
Yeah. So, and plus we have so many emails coming in, all of us do, that, you know, we're bound to miss some, but, so yeah, if I can get a little bit of head start, you know, at least be aware when it comes out so I can get the information out so that our businesses can take advantage of these programs to help them with a better successful story. So I would love to do that. So thank you. Is there any other questions while we're here? You've got her for 7 more minutes. I do appreciate all the information and all. Business Oregon touches so many different demographics and so many different types of business. So I know there's something for all of our businesses in town. It's good to know about our population number and what that allows us and not allows us to do. It's unfortunate. We are rural and we don't quite have all of the amenities that a bigger community would have. So, but it is good to know those so that when people come, I can answer them efficiently. And then always, anytime you guys have anything, questions, you need help broadcasting, please let us know. We'll get it out there and share it for you. We love having someone with feet on the ground right here in our area. So it always makes a difference for that aspect. So don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, can you help boost this? We need to get this out quickly. So we are here to help in any way like that. So thank you.
Great, and thank you
much.
much.
So with that, since we've covered everything, you now have her contact information. So nobody say that, oh, I didn't know. That's not allowed. With that, I'm going to let you guys go just a few minutes early. Make sure that you are doing the most important thing that you can do is help share the word and support local. So that's what keeps us going. And everybody have a fantastic Thursday. Hopefully I'll see a few of you at Business After Hours tonight.
Bye-bye.
And thank you again, Valerie.
Yep, thank you all. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.